Admiral Menu stood on the bridge of his flagship, the horizon's light, staring at the star map before him. 23 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. 23 years of peace, trade, and friendship with alien species from across the stars. He should have felt proud. Instead, something twisted in his gut like a warning he could not name. Admiral, new orders from Earth, his communications officer said, handing him a data pad. Menu read the message twice. The Council wanted all human fleets to redeploy immediately. A threat called the Scourge was supposedly coming from dark space, beyond the galactic rim. Every human ship needed to defend the outer systems. The orders were clear and urgent. "This makes no sense," Menu muttered. He pulled up tactical displays, studying the proposed fleet positions. The orders would scatter humanity's military forces across thousands of light years. Earth and the colony worlds would be left nearly defenseless. Why split our forces like this? His second officer, a younger woman named Lieutenant Bora, stepped closer. "Sir, should we question the Council?" Menu hesitated. Humans were still newcomers to galactic politics. Questioning orders might seem disrespectful or paranoid. Ambassador had worked hard to build trust with the Council species. He did not want to damage that relationship over a feeling in his gut. "No," he finally said. "Transmit orders to the fleet. We move in 6 hours." On Earth, Ambassador sat in the Grand Council chambers, surrounded by representatives from 40 different species. The tall beings with 4 arms and crystalline skin led the session. High Arbiter spoke with a voice that rumbled like distant thunder. "The threat is grave," announced. "Our sensors have detected massive movement in the dark regions. The Scourge comes. Humanity's fleets must protect the frontier worlds." Listened carefully. Something felt wrong about this emergency session. The Council members avoided eye contact with her. Their body language seemed tense, almost guilty. She had spent years learning to read alien expressions and gestures. These were not the movements of concerned leaders. These were the movements of conspirators. "High Arbiter, may I see the sensor data?" asked politely. "The data is classified for security reasons," replied quickly, too quickly. "Time is critical. Your fleets must move now." Wanted to argue, but 40 pairs of alien eyes stared at her. She was one human among dozens of species, each with centuries more experience in galactic affairs. She nodded slowly and transmitted Earth's agreement. Far across the galaxy, Captain guided his scout ship, the Defiant Hope, through a routine patrol near the Harmony Station colony. The small vessel was fast and equipped with the best sensors human engineering could produce. Took pride in his ship and crew. "Captain, picking up unusual signals," his sensor officer reported. "Multiple Council warships converging on Sector 779. "That's near the human mining colonies," said, frowning. "Why would Council military be there? According to fleet orders, the threat is in the opposite direction." "I don't know, sir, but there are a lot of ships, at least 200, maybe more." Made a decision. "Change course, take us closer but keep us hidden. I want to know what's happening." The Defiant Hope crept through space, using stealth technology to mask its presence. As they drew near, its blood turned cold. Dozens of Council warships surrounded Harmony Station. The civilian colony had no military defenses. It was home to 50,000 humans, mostly miners and their families. "They're powering weapons," the tactical officer whispered in horror. "Hail them," ordered. "Demand to know what." The first barrage of plasma fire cut through the darkness. Harmony Station's shields lasted 3 seconds. The civilian dome shattered like glass. Atmosphere vented into space in a cloud of crystallized air and debris. Watched in frozen shock as Council ships systematically destroyed every structure, every ship, every life pod trying to escape. "Get us out of here," said, his voice barely controlled. "Maximum speed, we need to warn Earth." But Earth had no time for warnings. Dr. Sumi floated in the zero gravity of Earth's orbital research station, reviewing quantum physics equations. She loved her work in space, far from the noise and chaos of the planet below. The station housed 5,000 scientists from different human nations, all working together to push the boundaries of knowledge. The station's alarm shrieked without warning. "All personnel, this is not a drill," the station commander's voice boomed through the speakers. "Unidentified ships approaching Earth. Defense grid is not responding. Repeat, defense grid is not responding." Sumi rushed to the nearest window. Her heart stopped. Hundreds of Council warships emerged from faster-than-light travel, surrounding Earth like predators circling wounded prey. The orbital defense platforms that should have activated remained dark and silent. Sabotage, Sumi realized. Someone had disabled Earth's defenses from within. The first missiles struck Earth's major cities without warning. Beijing, New York, Lagos, Mumbai, Moscow, Seoul. Brilliant flashes of nuclear fire blossomed across the planet's surface like deadly flowers. The research station shook as Council fighters strafed its hull. Explosions tore through sections. Scientists screamed as compartments decompressed. Sumi grabbed an emergency suit and helmet, her hands shaking so badly she could barely seal the clasps. Through the window, she watched her home world burn. The blue marble she had known her whole life was vanishing beneath clouds of ash and fire. On the Council station, Ambassador ran for her life. She had barely left the chambers when guards tried to kill her. A friendly alien scientist named, one of the peaceful herbivore species, had grabbed her arm and pulled her into a service corridor. "They planned this," gasped as they ran. "For years, I saw the documents. They fear humanity's growth. Your technology advances too fast. They decided to eliminate you before you become too powerful." "Eliminate?" His mind could not process the word. "You mean?" "Genocide," said flatly. "I am sorry. My people voted against this, but we are weak. We have no military. The Council's powerful species decided humanity must end." They reached an escape pod, pushed inside. "Tell your people," said. "Fight, survive, make them regret this." The pod launched. Through the small window, saw Council warships surrounding Earth. She saw the flashes of weapons fire. She saw humanity's greatest cities dying. And she understood that everything she had worked for, every friendship she had built, every treaty she had negotiated, had been a lie from the beginning. Admiral Minyu received the first distress calls while his fleet traveled toward the outer rim. Fragmentary messages, screams, pleas for help, and then silence. Earth's communication network went dark. The colony world stopped transmitting. His scattered fleet received similar reports from human outposts across the galaxy. They had been perfectly positioned to be destroyed piecemeal, too far from each other to help, too far from home to defend it. Minyu looked at his crew. They stared back with horror and rage in their eyes. "They killed them," Lieutenant Bora whispered. "They killed almost everyone." Minyu's hands clenched into fists. The Council had not feared a threat from dark space. They had feared humanity itself. And so they had struck first, devastating and complete. "Send coded messages to any surviving ships," Minyu ordered, his voice hard as steel. "Tell them to find the Void Nebula. We regroup there." "And then what?" Bora asked. Minyu stared at the star map, at the scattered markers representing his broken fleet and murdered people. "Then we make them pay." 3 weeks had passed since the attacks. Commander Jinnah crouched in the ruins of New Seoul's underground transport tunnels, listening to the heavy footsteps of Council soldiers above. The colony world that had been her home was now a prison camp. 200,000 humans survived here, but they lived like animals, hiding in the shadows while alien forces stripped their world of technology and resources. Jinnah's resistance group numbered only 40 fighters. They had few weapons, little food, and no hope of rescue. But they fought anyway because surrender meant death or slavery. She watched through a crack in the ceiling as Council troops loaded human computer systems onto transport vehicles. They were stealing everything, even the medical equipment from the hospitals. "They're taking our technology," whispered her second-in-command. "Why not just destroy it?" "Because that's why they attacked us," Jinnah replied bitterly. "They want what we built. They kill us but take our inventions for themselves." That night, Jinnah's group sabotaged 3 transport vehicles. It was not much, but it was something. The Council had taken their world, but they could not take humanity's will to resist. Across the galaxy, Admiral Menu's fleet gathered in the Void Nebula, a region of space so dense with gas and dust that sensors could barely penetrate it. Ships limped in one by one, damaged and low on supplies. Menu counted them obsessively. The human military had possessed nearly 1,000 warships before the attack. Now, only 400 remained. 40%, that was all that survived. "Status report," Menu ordered during the daily briefing. Lieutenant Bora pulled up casualty figures on the display. The numbers were almost impossible to believe. Earth's population had been 8 billion. Early estimates suggested 780 million dead in the first attacks. The orbital stations were gone. Major cities were nuclear wastelands. Colony worlds were either destroyed or occupied. "Total surviving human population is estimated at 4 billion, Bora said quietly. "But that number drops daily. The Council is hunting survivors." Menu studied the faces around the briefing room. These were good officers, strong people, but they looked broken. They had families on Earth or the colonies. Most did not know if their loved ones lived or died. "They want us to despair," Menu said firmly. "They want us to give up. We will not give them that satisfaction." A new officer entered the room. Captain had finally reached the nebula after weeks of running from Council hunters. His scout ship was barely functional, held together with emergency patches and spare parts. "Captain, good to see you alive," Menu said. "I wish I brought better news," replied. "I witnessed the Harmony Station massacre. I've been monitoring Council communications. They're bragging about it, Admiral. They call us dangerous warmongers who force them to act. They're telling the galaxy that humanity attacked first." Anger rippled through the room. The lies added insult to the genocide. "Let them lie," Menu said. "Truth will come later. Right now we survive." Ambassador worked from a hidden base on one of Jupiter's moons. The facility had been an emergency backup command center, built in secret years ago when humanity first encountered aliens. Back then, it seemed paranoid. Now, it was their salvation. She spent her days gathering evidence. Every communication she could intercept, every piece of data about the attacks. She compiled a record of the Council's crimes, storing it in encrypted files spread across hidden networks. Someday, somehow, the galaxy would know the truth. "Ambassador, you need to see this," her assistant called. Reviewed the decrypted Council message. Her hands began to shake. The Council planned to finish their genocide within 6 months. They were building special weapons designed to hunt humans in their hiding places. Ships that could detect human DNA from orbit. Bombs that targeted human genetic signatures. "They're not satisfied with what they've done," whispered. "They want complete extinction." She forwarded the intelligence to Admiral Menu. If humanity had 6 months, they needed to use that time wisely. On Earth's frozen surface, Engineer worked in the ruins of an Antarctic research facility. The remote location had saved it from the initial attacks, and 15 other scientists had survived by luck and isolation. Now they searched through the facility's deepest levels, looking for anything useful. "Found something," one scientist called from a sealed vault. Rushed over. The vault contained military prototypes from decades past, experimental weapons that had never been deployed. Humanity had built these in secret, just in case peace with aliens failed. The scientists had been called paranoid warmongers back then. Now they looked like prophets. studied the designs. One system caught his attention: the Reaper Drive. It allowed ships to jump through faster-than-light space in much shorter distances than normal. Traditional faster-than-light drives needed to jump from star system to star system. The Reaper Drive could jump within a single system, appearing anywhere instantly. This could change everything, breathed. We could hit them and vanish before they react. He began calculations immediately. If they could build this, if they could install it on the surviving fleet, humanity might have a chance. Pilot flew her fighter through an asteroid field, 3 Council pursuit craft on her tail. She had lost her entire squadron in the first week of war. Now she fought alone, striking at Council supply lines and vanishing into the cosmic debris fields. Her fighter was damaged, shields were failing, weapons were nearly empty, but she had 1 missile left and she intended to use it, flipped her fighter in a maneuver that would have killed most pilots. The G-forces crushed her into her seat, but her enhanced reflexes and training kept her conscious. She fired. The missile struck the lead Council fighter. It exploded in a ball of plasma. The debris took out the second ship. The third broke off pursuit, unwilling to follow her deeper into the dangerous asteroid field. Laughed despite her exhaustion. One more small victory, one more day survived. She transmitted her combat data to Admiral Menu's fleet. Every fight taught them something about Council tactics and weaknesses. The information was scattered across hundreds of pilots and crews, but slowly they were learning how to fight back. Commander Jinnah's resistance received an unexpected visitor in the tunnels of New Seoul. A human woman appeared, dressed in civilian clothes but moving with military precision. She carried a data chip. "From Admiral Menu," the woman said. "Instructions and supplies are coming. Keep fighting. Keep the Council's forces busy. Help is on the way." "When?" Jinnah demanded. "Soon. We're not abandoning you." The woman vanished back into the tunnels before Council patrols could find her. Jinnah clutched the data chip. It contained plans for sabotage operations and encrypted communications protocols. More importantly, it contained hope. That night, Jinnah's resistance hit 3 Council supply depots simultaneously. The occupiers had grown comfortable, believing the humans were beaten. They learned otherwise when their ammunition stores exploded and their communications failed. Across human space, similar resistance cells activated. On occupied worlds and in hidden bases, survivors struck back. The blows were small, barely noticeable in the larger war, but they added up. Council forces found themselves fighting ghosts, never knowing when or where humans would attack next. In the Void Nebula, Admiral Menu received reports of the resistance activities. A grim smile crossed his face. Humanity was wounded, scattered, reduced to a fraction of its former strength. But humans had not surrendered. They fought with whatever they had, wherever they were. Engineer transmitted the Reaper Drive designs to the fleet. Dr. Sumi, who had survived the orbital station massacre, began working with the fleet's engineers to install the new system. It would take months to retrofit even a portion of the ships, but they had to try. Ambassador's intelligence networks grew stronger each day. She recruited sympathetic aliens who were horrified by the genocide. Not all species had supported the Council's actions. Some wanted to help but feared becoming targets themselves. Captain led scouting missions, mapping Council positions and identifying targets. Pilot trained other survivors in her hit-and-run tactics. Commander Jinnah organized resistance cells across multiple worlds. And Admiral Menu planned. He studied every bit of intelligence, every combat report, every piece of data. He looked for patterns and weaknesses. The Council had thought humanity would collapse after the initial attacks. They were wrong. Humans were adaptable. They learned fast. They refused to die quietly. "How long until we can strike back?" Lieutenant Bora asked one evening. Menu studied the fleet status reports. Ships were being repaired. New weapons were being developed. Crew members were training in new tactics. The scattered survivors were consolidating into a force. 4 months, Minyu said. In 4 months we hit them, not to survive, to win. 4 months after the betrayal, the human fleet had transformed. The Void Nebula served as both hiding place and workshop. Every ship had been retrofitted with Engineer's Reaper drive. The new technology let human vessels jump instantly within star systems, giving them an advantage no other species possessed. Admiral Minyu walked through the modified hangar bay of his flagship. Engineers worked around the clock, installing new weapons and defense systems. The ships looked different now, darker and more aggressive. They were no longer exploration vessels or peacekeeping craft. They were weapons of war. Status of operation, Minyu asked his staff. A young tactical officer named stepped forward. She was barely 25 years old, but her genius for strategy had earned her a position on Minyu's command staff. She pulled up a galaxy map showing 12 Council Core worlds highlighted in red. All strike groups are ready, reported. We hit all 12 targets simultaneously. The Council will have to divide their forces. They won't know which attack is most important. Minyu studied the plan. It was bold, perhaps reckless. The human fleet numbered only 400 ships against the Council's thousands, but humans had advantages now: speed, stealth, and the element of surprise. We also have new intelligence, said a voice from the doorway. Entered the briefing room. He was a human who had worked for Council intelligence before the genocide. When the attacks began, he had stolen classified files and fled back to human space. The information he provided was invaluable. The Council's military doctrine hasn't changed in 3,000 years, explained, spreading documents across the table. They fight the same way their ancestors did: rigid formations, predictable tactics. They rely on superior numbers and firepower. Which means they're not ready for what we've become, Lieutenant Bora said with satisfaction. Dr. Sumi arrived with more good news. She had developed Ghost Protocol, a system that made human ships nearly invisible to Council sensors. The technology was not perfect and did not last long, but it would give human forces crucial minutes of invisibility during attacks. We also have these, Engineer said, displaying holographic images of new weapons. Hammer torpedoes, they can crack planetary shields, and Wraith fighters, smaller, faster, harder to track than anything the Council has seen. Pilot commanded the training program for the new Wraith fighters. She had survived dozens of solo missions and earned a reputation as a ghost who struck without warning. Now she trained 300 pilots in her methods. The Council pilots are good but slow, explained to her students. They follow procedures, we adapt. They expect us to follow their rules, we make our own. General oversaw ground forces training. He was preparing soldiers for planetary liberation campaigns. When human ships reclaimed occupied worlds, his troops would need to fight Council forces on the ground. Our advantage is speed and adaptability, told his commanders. Council soldiers are heavily armored but slow. They think in terms of formations and tactics from centuries past. We hit fast, from unexpected angles, and vanish before they can respond. The months of preparation had forged the scattered survivors into something new. They were no longer the peaceful humans who had joined the Council 23 years ago. They were harder now, sharper, driven by loss and rage channeled into focused determination. Ambassador had become the fleet's intelligence chief. She abandoned diplomacy and embraced the role of spymaster. Her network of informants included sympathetic aliens who secretly opposed the genocide. They provided steady intelligence about Council movements and plans. The Council believes we're still hiding, reported. They think we're too weak to fight back. They've grown comfortable. Then we'll teach them a lesson about underestimating humans, Minyu replied. The first target was Prime, a major Council supply depot. The base serviced hundreds of warships and stored 3 months' worth of military supplies. Taking it would hurt the Council's ability to wage war. Admiral Menu led the strike force personally. 20 ships jumped into the system using Reaper Drive, appearing directly above the depot without warning. The Council defenders had no time to react. Ghost Protocol activated, making the human ships vanish from sensors even as they fired. The battle lasted 6 minutes. Hammer torpedoes shattered the depot's shields. Wraith fighters swarmed Council defensive positions. By the time reinforcements arrived, the human fleet had destroyed 40 enemy warships, obliterated the supply depot, and vanished back into faster-than-light travel. 0 human casualties. News of the attack spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Council had told everyone that humanity was defeated, scattered, and weak. Now those weak humans had struck a major military target and disappeared without a trace. Council High Arbiter convened an emergency session. His 4 arms gestured angrily as he addressed the assembly. "How did they accomplish this?" demanded. "Our intelligence said the human fleet was hiding in the outer sectors. They should not have been able to reach Prime." "They have new technology," a military advisor reported nervously. "Ships that can jump within star systems, stealth systems we cannot penetrate, weapons we have never seen before." "They're humans," roared. "Primitives who joined the galaxy barely 2 decades ago. How can they have technology we do not possess?" The answer, though none dared speak it aloud, was clear. Humanity advanced faster than any species in recorded history. What took other civilizations centuries to develop, humans achieved in years. The Council had feared this rapid progress. That fear had driven them to genocide. Now that same rapid advancement was being turned against them. Made his decision. Mobilize the Grand Fleet, 8,000 warships. We will crush the human remnants once and for all. But mobilizing such a massive fleet took time, and time was something the Council no longer controlled. Human strike forces hit targets across Council space. They struck supply lines, communications relays, and isolated military outposts. Each attack lasted minutes. Each left Council forces reeling and confused. The humans seemed to be everywhere at once, attacking from impossible angles and vanishing before defenders could respond. Captain led a raid on a Council prison camp, rescuing 2,000 human captives. Commander Jinnah's resistance on New Sol received weapons and supplies dropped by human ships that appeared and disappeared so quickly, the occupiers barely had time to sound alarms. Pilot's Ghost Squadron infiltrated a Council shipyard and destroyed 30 vessels under construction. They escaped without losing a single fighter. The psychological impact was enormous. Council forces began to fear human attacks. Patrols grew nervous and jumpy. Commanders hesitated, worried that any decision might lead them into a human trap. "They're afraid of us now," observed during a planning session. "Good, fear makes them careless." Admiral Menu studied intelligence reports about the Council's Grand Fleet. 8,000 warships represented the bulk of Council military might. If that fleet could be defeated or crippled, the Council would lose its ability to wage war. "They're planning to trap us," warned. "I still have contacts in Council intelligence. They're setting an ambush at the Meridian Expanse. They expect us to attack their fuel refineries there." "Then they expect correctly," Menu said with a cold smile. "We will attack the refineries, but not the way they expect." He turned to, "Plan a counterambush, make them think they've trapped us, then spring our own trap." His eyes lit up with understanding. "You want to draw out their Grand Fleet and hit them while they think they have us surrounded." "Exactly. We end this war with one decisive battle. We don't have the resources for a long conflict. We need to break their military power completely." The plan was risky. If it failed, the human fleet would be destroyed, and the last hope of humanity would die with it. But Minu had learned something important over the past 4 months. Humans were at their best when everything was at stake. Desperation brought out a fierce creativity and determination that no other species could match. "Send word to all strike groups," Minu ordered. "In 2 weeks, we converge on Meridian Expanse. Tell them this will be the battle that decides everything." Engineer worked on one final weapon, something even the Admiral did not yet know about. He called it the Solar Lance, a beam weapon that could burn through any shield the Council possessed. It was powerful but unstable. It might work once, maybe twice, before overloading its power systems. "Make it work," told his team. "We'll only get one chance to use it. It needs to count." Across human space, soldiers and pilots prepared for the coming battle. They sharpened their skills, checked their weapons, and said quiet goodbyes to each other. Many would not survive what was coming. They all knew it. But they also knew that humanity's future depended on what happened at Meridian Expanse. Admiral Minu stood alone in his quarters the night before the operation began. He thought about the 780 million who died in the initial attacks. He thought about Earth's burning cities and destroyed colonies. He thought about everything humanity had lost. "This is for them," he said quietly to the empty room. "For everyone who died, for everyone who still suffers under Council occupation, we make them pay." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, racing toward the Meridian Expanse and the battle that would determine if humanity survived or perished forever. The Meridian Expanse was a region of space where 3 star systems met, creating unusual gravitational currents that made navigation difficult. The Council had built massive fuel refineries here to process exotic matter for their faster-than-light drives. Destroying these refineries would cripple Council military operations for months. Admiral Minu knew the Council expected humanity to attack this target. That was exactly what he wanted them to think. 200 ships jump with me," Minu ordered. "The rest stay hidden in the nearby nebula. When the trap closes on us, you close your own trap on them." His fleet split into 2 groups. Minu led the bait force toward the refineries. Captain commanded the hidden reserve. The plan was simple but risky. Everything depended on timing and the Council's arrogance. The human ships emerged from faster-than-light travel near the refineries. Immediately, alarms shrieked across Council command networks. The humans had taken the bait. High Arbiter watched from his command ship as the human fleet approached. He stood in the center of a massive bridge, surrounded by tactical displays and crew stations. His crystalline skin glowed with satisfaction. "They came," said. "Just as predicted. These humans are predictable after all." "Should we spring the trap, High Arbiter?" his admiral asked. "Yes, surround them. I want every human ship destroyed, leave none alive." The Council's grand fleet appeared from multiple directions. 5,000 warships materialized around the human force, forming a sphere of overwhelming firepower. The humans were trapped in the center with no escape route. Council ships outnumbered them 25-1. "Humans, surrender your vessels," broadcast. "You have fought well, but you are defeated. Surrender and we may show mercy." On the bridge of the Horizon's Light, Lieutenant Bora looked worried. "Admiral, they have us completely surrounded. If this doesn't work." "It will work," Minu said calmly. He opened a channel to all human ships. "Activate Ghost Protocol. All ships, evasive pattern Delta. Make them chase shadows." The human ships vanished from Council sensors. 200 vessels disappeared as if they had never existed. Council gunners fired at empty space, their targeting systems unable to lock onto the invisible human ships. "Where did they go?" demanded. "Find them." "Our sensors cannot penetrate their stealth," the tactical officer reported frantically. "They could be anywhere within the perimeter." The human ships reappeared randomly across the battlefield, firing quick bursts before vanishing again. Council ships collided with each other trying to track targets that appeared and disappeared without pattern. The organized sphere of Council forces dissolved into chaos. Then Captain's 200 ships jumped in behind the Council fleet, appearing from the nebula using Reaper drive. The Council forces suddenly found themselves trapped between two human formations, instead of having the humans trapped inside their sphere. "Now they're caught," said with grim satisfaction from her tactical station. The Battle of Meridian Expanse became the largest space engagement in galactic history. For 3 hours, human and Council forces fought across millions of cubic kilometers. The darkness of space lit up with weapons fire, exploding ships, and the brilliant flashes of reactor cores going critical. Human ships moved like hunting predators, appearing from nowhere, striking and vanishing before Council gunners could respond. The Wraith fighters swarmed through Council formations, too small and fast for the larger warships to track. Hammer torpedoes cracked through shields that had protected Council ships for centuries. Pilot led Ghost Squadron in a daring attack on the Council flagship. Her fighters streaked through defensive fire that would have destroyed any normal squadron. But pilots moved with inhuman precision, anticipating and dodging threats before they materialized. "Break formation," ordered. "Independent attack pattern, make them choose which of us to shoot at." The 12 fighters split apart, each taking different approach angles to the flagship. Council defenses tried to track all of them and succeeded at tracking none. Torpedo struck the flagship's bridge section. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield. High Arbiter died instantly, along with his entire command staff. With the flagship destroyed, Council coordination collapsed. Individual ships fought bravely, but without unified command. Human forces exploited every moment of confusion. Engineer activated his secret weapon from the horizon's light. The Solar Lance was a massive beam weapon mounted in the flagship's forward section. It drew power from the ship's entire reactor, creating a lance of pure energy hot enough to burn through any substance. Targeted a Council superdreadnought, a warship 3 times the size of any human vessel. The Solar Lance fired. For 3 seconds, a beam of brilliant white light connected the horizon's light to the enemy superdreadnought. When the beam shut off, the Council ship had a hole completely through its center. Secondary explosions tore the massive warship apart from within. "The weapon worked," reported with exhausted satisfaction. "But it's burned out. We won't get another shot." "One shot was enough," Minyu replied. The destruction of the superdreadnought sent shockwaves through the Council forces. If the humans could destroy their most powerful ships that easily, what chance did smaller vessels have? Council ships began to retreat, first in 1s and 2s, then in entire squadrons. The retreat became a rout. Human forces pursued, destroying ships that moved too slowly or turned to fight. When the battle ended, the debris field stretched across an entire stellar region. 2,800 Council ships had been destroyed. The grand fleet that was supposed to crush humanity forever had been broken. Human losses were 89 ships, far fewer than Admiral Minyu had feared. The survivors of the Council fleet fled back to their home territories, carrying news of the catastrophic defeat. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in 3 hours of brutal combat. In the aftermath, 3 Council species immediately requested peace negotiations. These were smaller civilizations that had reluctantly supported the genocide out of fear. Now they saw that humanity could win, and they wanted no part of the losing side. "Tell them we will talk," Ambassador advised Minyu. "But only after we liberate our occupied worlds and rescue our people. The Council started this war. We will finish it on our terms." Commander Jinnah received the news in the tunnels of New Seoul. The Resistance fighters cheered, hugging each other and crying with relief. They had survived on hope alone for so long. Now that hope had substance, liberation was coming. General prepared his ground forces. With space superiority secured, they could begin landing troops on occupied worlds. The fight was not over, but the tide had turned decisively. Dr. Sumi analyzed the battle data, already planning improvements to human technology. Every engagement taught them more about fighting in space. Human ships would be even deadlier in the next battle. But Admiral Minu received troubling intelligence from. The remaining Council leadership had retreated to their home cluster, a region of space protected by powerful defenses. Worse, they were activating something called the Extinction Array. "What is it?" Minu asked. "An ancient weapon," explained, his face pale. "It was banned ago. The weapon can sterilize entire star systems, killing all life. The Council is desperate. If they cannot defeat humanity militarily, they will use the Extinction Array to kill everyone." Pulled up a star map. "The weapon is on Council Prime, their home world. It's heavily defended. Even after Meridian, they still have over 1,200 warships protecting the core systems. And we have just over 300 ships left after our losses and damaged vessels," Lieutenant Bora added. Minu studied the tactical situation. The odds were bad, but humanity had overcome bad odds before. More importantly, if the Council activated the Extinction Array, Earth and all remaining human worlds would be destroyed. There was no choice. "We have 72 hours before the weapon charges fully," said. "Then we have 72 hours to take Council Prime," Minu replied. "Send word to all ships. We end this. We strike at the heart of the Council itself." The human fleet prepared for its final and most desperate assault. They had won the Battle of Meridian Expanse, but the war was not over. The Council's last desperate gambit would either destroy humanity completely or give the humans a chance to win final victory. Admiral Minu looked at the tactical display showing Council Prime, the heavily defended world where the Extinction Array was being charged. Somewhere on that planet, Council leaders were preparing to commit a genocide that would dwarf their first attack. "They wanted to exterminate us because they feared what we might become," Minu said quietly. "Now we show them their fear was justified, not because we're monsters, but because we refuse to die." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, racing toward the final battle. Council Prime hung in space like a jewel, the ancient home world of the species that had dominated the galaxy for 3,000 years. The planet was surrounded by 1,200 warships, orbital fortresses, and powerful shield generators. It was the most heavily defended location in known space. Admiral Minu's fleet of 300 ships seemed hopelessly outnumbered, but numbers had never told the whole story of this war. "Execute the plan," Minu ordered. The tactical officer nodded and transmitted orders to all strike groups. The assault would happen in 3 phases, each building on the last. Everything depended on timing and coordination. Pilot led the first phase. Her Ghost Squadron approached from the galactic north, making a loud and obvious attack run. Every Council sensor locked onto her fighters. Defense platforms swiveled to track them. 600 warships moved to intercept. "Come on, you bastards," muttered as warning alarms filled her cockpit. "Chase me." Her squadron led the Council ships on a wild chase through a nearby asteroid field. The Council vessels were larger and more powerful, but the asteroid slowed them down. Fighters weaved between the rocks with suicidal precision. 3 Council ships collided with asteroids trying to follow. The rest were drawn far from Council Prime. While the defenders focused on diversion, Captain led Phase 2. Cloaked slipped through the gaps in the defensive perimeter. The ships were small, barely larger than shuttles, and Ghost Protocol made them invisible to sensors. They carried commando teams toward the planet's surface. General sat in the lead, checking his weapons one final time. His team's mission was critical. They had to reach the Extinction Array Control Center and stop the weapon before it fired. Behind him, Commander Jinnah prepared her own team. After months fighting resistance on New Sol, she had volunteered for this suicide mission. 2 minutes to landing, the pilot announced. Council shields are focusing on the space battle. We should get through. They descended through Council Prime's atmosphere. Anti-aircraft fire lit up the sky, but the cloaked ships slipped between the defensive patterns. They landed in the government district, just 3 kilometers from the extinction array facility. "Move fast," ordered. "We have 30 minutes before someone realizes we're here." The commandos ran through alien streets while overhead, the space battle intensified. Admiral Minu launched Phase 3. The human fleet had circled to approach Council Prime from the direction of the system's star. They traveled through the star's corona, using specialized heat shields to protect them from the intense radiation. It was dangerous and painful, but it brought them to a position no one expected. The human ships emerged from behind the star, appearing directly above Council Prime. The remaining 600 Council warships scrambled to respond, but they were out of position. The planet's shields focused upward, expecting attacks from space. They were not ready for attacks from the star's direction. "All ships fire at will," Minu commanded. Hammer torpedoes rained down on the orbital fortresses. The fortifications had stood for centuries, considered impregnable. They lasted 12 minutes against human weapons. Explosions bloomed across Council Prime's orbit like deadly flowers. Commander Jinnah's team reached the shield generator facility on the planet's surface. The building was guarded by heavy automated defenses and Council soldiers. Jinnah smiled grimly. After months fighting on New Sol, she knew every trick of urban combat. "Thermal charges on the north wall," she ordered. "We go in fast and loud." The charges exploded, creating a hole in the facility's defenses. Jinnah's team poured through, their weapons cutting down confused guards. Within 3 minutes, they reached the shield control room. Engineer had sent detailed instructions for sabotaging the system. Jinnah followed them precisely. The planetary shields flickered and died. Above, Admiral Minu saw the shields collapse. "All ships, weapons free, target the orbital fortresses." The human fleet concentrated fire on the defensive platforms. Without shields, the fortresses were vulnerable. One by one, they exploded or went dark. The Council's orbital defenses, built over centuries, were destroyed in minutes. General reached the extinction array control center. The massive facility stretched deep underground, a weapon capable of sterilizing entire star systems. Inside, Council technicians worked frantically at control panels covered with alien symbols. "Hands up," shouted. Most of the technicians surrendered immediately. A few tried to fight and died quickly, rushed to the main control console. The countdown showed 5 minutes until the weapon fired at Earth. "Talk me through this," said into his communicator. The engineer's voice crackled back. "The weapon cannot be disarmed. It is too complex, but you can redirect it. See the targeting controls. They look like 3 concentric circles." Found the controls. His hands shook as he worked. One wrong input and the weapon might fire immediately at Earth or at his own position. "I'm redirecting the target," reported. He aimed the weapon at an uninhabited moon where the Council had their main weapons research facility. The facility was evacuated, but destroying it would eliminate the Council's ability to develop new weapons. "Fire sequence locked in," said. "Get everyone out of here. When this weapon fires, the feedback will destroy the entire control center." His team ran for the exit. Behind them, the extinction array powered up. The ground shook. A beam of pure destructive energy lanced into space, striking the research moon. The moon simply ceased to exist, vaporized instantly. The backlash destroyed the control center in a massive explosion. And his team barely made it out alive. In space, the Council fleet realized they had lost. Their flagship was destroyed. Their defenses were broken. The extinction array was gone, and human ships surrounded their home world. The remaining Council ships surrendered. Ambassador transmitted a message across all frequencies. "To all Council species and all civilizations in the galaxy, For months, the Council has told you that humanity attacked first. This is a lie. I now broadcast proof of the Council's genocide. These are their own communications, planning the attack. These are the orders to exterminate humanity. Let the galaxy judge who the real monsters are. Evidence flooded across every communication network. Videos of the initial attacks, intercepted orders, Council leaders discussing the genocide openly. Species across the galaxy watched in horror as the truth emerged. The Council's lies collapsed. The civilization that had ruled for 3,000 years lost all legitimacy in hours. Within days, 89 Council species voted to dissolve the old government. They formed a new galactic federation with stronger protections against genocide and aggression. Ambassador became the first chancellor, chosen because she had exposed the truth and fought for justice. Human forces liberated the occupied worlds. Commander Jinnah stood in New Sol's central square as human ships landed, bringing supplies and freedom. She watched former prisoners emerge from hiding, crying and laughing with relief. The occupation was over. Earth began rebuilding. The scars of the attacks would take generations to heal, but humans were resilient. With help from grateful alien species who opposed the genocide, the cities rose again. The orbital stations were reconstructed. Life continued. Admiral Minu retired from military service. He became an instructor at Earth's new defense academy, teaching the next generation of officers. He was proud of what humanity had accomplished, but haunted by the cost. 780 million dead. That number never left his mind. General became Earth's Minister of Defense, ensuring humanity would never again be vulnerable to attack. Captain was promoted to Admiral and led exploration missions to rebuild human colonies. Dr. Sumi directed galactic scientific cooperation, helping species work together on peaceful projects. Engineer continued developing defensive technologies. He swore humanity would never again face extinction because they lacked the tools to defend themselves. Pilot commanded Ghost Squadron, now a peacekeeping force helping protect smaller species from aggression. Commander Jinnah became governor of New Sol, rebuilding the world she had fought so hard to liberate. Served as strategic advisor to the Galactic Federation, helping prevent future conflicts. 1 year after the war ended, a memorial was built on Earth. It stood where New York had been, before the nuclear fires. The names of 780 million victims were inscribed in stone that reached toward the sky. Admiral Minu spoke at the dedication ceremony. Millions attended in person. Billions watched across the galaxy. They feared our potential, Minu said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. They saw how fast we learned, how quickly we advanced. They decided to extinguish our light before it could shine too brightly. Instead, they taught us that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology. It is our refusal to surrender. It is our ability to adapt to any challenge. It is our loyalty to each other, even in the darkest times. He paused, looking at the memorial wall. We did not just survive. We ensured this never happens to anyone else. We built a new galactic order based on justice, not power. We proved that humanity deserves our place among the stars, not because we are the strongest but because we never stopped trying to be better. The crowd stood in silence, honoring the dead and celebrating the survival of their species. Carved into the memorial's base were final words. They thought our kindness was weakness. They learned the difference. Human ships patrol the galaxy now, not as conquerors but as protectors. The species that had nearly been exterminated had become the guardians of galactic peace. The Council had tried to destroy humanity out of fear. That fear had been justified, but not for the reasons they thought. Humanity was dangerous not because they were warlike or aggressive. They were dangerous because they refused to accept injustice, refused to surrender, and refused to let anyone else suffer the genocide they had survived. The galaxy would never forget the price of the Council's treachery, and humanity would never forget the cost of their survival.